Canadian election finally over, and everybody's a loser. Tyler, what are you talking about? Of course, there's no losers. The Liberals won a minority government. That's not necessarily a great thing. Here's why. What does this mean for Canada? Now that we have a Liberal minority government, and we know that on average, those minority governments in Canada last usually about 18 months, what does it mean for us here as Canadians? What's likely to happen? And how's it going to impact our housing market, interest rates, and everything moving forward? Let's take a look at it. When we look at a minority government, the problem is the agenda that the party has, the Liberals in this case, it's very difficult for them to pass the legislation in order to accomplish their goals. They're going to have to partner with other parties in order to get their agenda completed. What this means is usually they have to offer something to those individuals in order to be able to accomplish the goals. That's not necessarily a good thing. When you look at the Liberal budget that they'd put out initially in terms of the costing of their plan moving forward, it was a lot of money. A lot of money usually does not reflect well in terms of the bond market. What we see is that the high spending from government usually means inflation and concerns for Canadians. What that means is higher interest rates on the fixed side of things, and it's going to put the Bank of Canada in a very difficult position. There are a couple different outcomes that we could see in terms of where the Canadian economy goes depending on what happens inside of Parliament. Canadian economy at the moment is not doing well. It is consistently contracting. We're seeing less and less growth, and the tariffs from Donald Trump not helping. So when we take a look at where we go from here specifically, there's two key pieces that we need to take a look at. The first is Mark Carney's ability to negotiate with Donald Trump. This was the main reason that a lot of Canadians voted for Mark Carney. He has quite the resume. He has negotiated very large deals in the past, and him sitting at the table with Donald Trump is something that a lot of Canadians believed would bring good to Canada. So we'll have to see. I know that they have had an initial call recently where he called Mark Carney quite the gentleman. I don't know what that means in terms of Trump's mind, whether or not he likes him and they're going to continue on having good negotiations, or if he'll be calling him, Governor Carney as of tomorrow. So we'll have to see how that plays out. If those negotiations go well, that is good for Canada's economy. That would be fantastic. The second thing that we have to look at is what if they don't go well? And let's take a look at this Liberal plan for Canada moving forward, their ability to get that done, and how the Bank of Canada is going to view the Liberals and their plan moving forward. So when we look at an economy in Canada that is struggling, there are two different ways that the economy can be stimulated, and sometimes they happen together. So when you take a look at COVID, for example, you had the Bank of Canada cutting interest rates aggressively, and you had the Canadian government turning on the money printer in order to inject capital into the Canadian economy. That's much less likely this time around, given where we're at in terms of our battle with inflation. The Liberals have a very costly plan. They could ramp up housing, they could support the energy sector, and we could see them bring growth and wealth to Canada if they're able to execute those plans and have support from one of the other parties here in Canada in order to get that done. If that is the case, you're very likely to see the Bank of Canada not need to cut interest rates further in order to support the Canadian economy. A lot of major economists at the moment are saying that with this now Liberal minority government, it's likely that the Bank of Canada will sit on the sidelines. We're going to have to see how this all plays out. I know that there are not a lot of people that are happy about the election. I think the key piece here for us as Canadians is that we all band together. We all want a better Canada at the end of the day. You can see the divisiveness in Canadians at the moment. 50% wanting the Conservatives from popular vote and 50% wanting the Liberals, or roughly those numbers. We do need to work together in order to improve our economy. I've heard some crazy things recently about NDP MPs moving over to the Liberal side to give them a majority. We're talking about Alberta, potentially leaving Canada as well. All of those have major implications. We'll have to see how everything plays out. If you have an upcoming mortgage renewal, you're buying a property, you need assistance with your mortgage, that's what we do here at Pilot. We would love to assist you, give you guided personal advice as to what the best options for you would be moving forward. I'm Tyler Wilson with Pilot. Thanks so much. Chat with you soon.